Good day, everyone. My name is Ahmad Naim, and I'll be the first person to be presenting on our topic for today, which is joint products. We'll go through the first part of our topic today, which is the definition and core characteristics of joint products. Okay, to begin, what are joint products? Joint products are two or more products that are produced simultaneously from the same raw material and production process. In other words, a company uses a single production process and they can obtain multiple outputs at the same time. Because these products are generated together, the production costs incurred before they become separate products cannot be directly assigned to any one product. Yeah. If we see, according to a journalist, according to Alvi in 2023, joint products rise when a single production process produce multiple outputs that produce multiple outputs. A simple example we can see is crude oil refining. This is a great example because when crude oil is processed, it produces several valuable products such as gasoline, diesel, and kerosene. These products are obtained from the same production process and therefore are considered joint products. Now that we understand the definition, let's look at the core characteristic of joint products. Now, the very first characteristic is that they are produced simultaneously. Joint products are created together from the same production process rather than being manufactured separately, which means that when one product is produced, the other products are also generated as part of the same operation. The second characteristic is that they share common production costs. Before the products can be separated and identified individually, the costs incurred are common to all products. These costs include materials, labor, and overhead expenses that is used in the production process. Yeah. And the third one is that each product has significant economic value, unlike byproducts, which usually have a relatively low value. Joint products are all important outputs that contribute substantially to the company's revenue and profitability. The fourth characteristic is that joint products originate from the same raw material. Since they come from a common source, it is often difficult to determine exactly how much of the production cost belongs to each product before they are separated. And the fifth characteristic is interdependent production. This means that the production of one joint product automatically results in the production of the other joint product. A company cannot usually produce one of the products without producing the others as well. Yeah.
My name is Muhammad Rifdi bin Saari with metric number 313153. I will present an essential concept of the split of points. This presentation draws its foundational concept directly from the article Atlas Managerial Accounting Case, examining joint products in the international scrap metal recycling industry. Over the next few minutes, we will break this topic down into the two parts. First, we will explore the core theoretical frameworks. Then we will transition from theory to practice by looking at how this concept function on a real industry factory floor. Let's begin by defining what the split of points looks like in the general manufacturing environment. In any joint manufacturing process, the split of point is the exact stage of production where individual products become separately identifiable for the first time. Think of it as a moment of transformation. Up until this specific moment, all raw material, labor, and operational overhead are combined within a single unified manufacturing stream. During this initial phase, it is physically and logistically impossible to distinguish or track one specific product from another because everything is mixed together. If we look at the split of point diagram on this slide, we can visualize how this works. We have a single line on the left representing the combined inputs. Then we have a clear visual intersection. This point acts as a critical operation fork in the rod where a single collective process branches out into a multiple unique outputs. These resulting outputs are formally classified as joint products. Each product possesses its own distinct physical characteristic and commercial identity immediately upon emerging from that shared production phase. Now, let us move to our second slide and apply this exact theory to a real-world operation by looking at Atlas scrap metal. The flowchart on this slide maps out the recycling production line step by step. The joint process begins at the very left with a single collective input consisting of crushed vehicle bodies known as culhart. This massive metal structure are fed directly into a shared industrial shredder. During stage 1, this shredding phase breaks the vehicle down into a uniform, intermingled mix of fragmented pieces. At this stage, all types of steel and other metals remain completely intermixed in one part streams. So, individual tracking is entirely impossible. The precise physical split of point for Atlas scrap metal occurs immediately after the shredding phase at stage 2, which is the magnetic expression stage. As the massive mixture of structure fragments travel along the main conveyor belts, it passes directly beneath a rotating magnetic drum. This specific mechanism juncture serves as a definitive boundary lines on the factory floor where the single process officially fractures into two independent pathways. At this exact drum location, the magnetic field instantly pulls the ferrous steel upward onto its own dedicated conveyor lines, which leads to a stage 3, which is forged into steel ingots. At the same exact times, the non-magnetic metal drops forward into a separate streams to be bared and loaded as a container of mixed non-ferrous material. This mechanism drum stage represents the official split of point for Atlas scrap metals because it is the first time in the entire operation sequence that the process yields two independent, recognizable, and measurable inventory products. In conclusion, when analyzing the split of point, its aware represented critical transition from operational unity to product diversity. It defined the exact boundary lines on the factory floor where a single combined process and distinct individual inventory products finally emerge. Understanding this precise moment of separation is the foundation for accurate product tracking, precise inventory measurement, and effective operational management across any industry.
My name is Yusuf Hafizuddin bin Airul Nizam and my matrix number is 309262. Good morning. Today I will present my assigned subtopic, which is distinguishing joint costs and separable costs. This presentation is based on the journal article I found, which titled "An Application of Activity-Based Costing in the Chicken Processing Industry: A Case of Joints Product." This article is published by International Food and Agribusiness Management Review in January 2017 by Penravi Kabinlapat and Siriluk Sutchahai. The study examines how a chicken processing company allocates costs among multiple chicken products produced from a single production process. The article applies activity-based costing or ABC to improve the accuracy of product costing and demonstrates the challenge of allocating costs in a joint production environment. Before discussing cost allocation, it is important to understand the difference between joint costs and separable costs because these costs occur at different stages of production. First, let us discuss joint costs. Joint costs. Joint costs are costs incurred before the split of point, which is the point where different products can first be identified and separated. Before reaching this point, several products are produced together using the same raw material, labor and production facilities. Therefore, these costs are shared among all products and cannot be directly traced to any individual product. In the chicken processing company, a live chicken undergoes common processing activities such as receiving, slaughtering, defeathering, cleaning and cutting. During this stage, costs such as raw material, labor, utilities and factory overhead are incurred jointly. Since these costs benefit all resulting products, they are considered as a joint cost. For example, the cost of slaughtering and cleaning a whole chicken is a joint cost because these activities are performed before the chicken is separated into different parts. At this stage, all products share the same processing costs. Next, let us discuss separable costs. Separable costs are costs incurred after the split of point. At this stage, products have already become identifiable and can be processed individually. Because these costs relate to a specific product, they can be directly assigned to that product without any allocation process. In the chicken processing company, some products may require additional trimming, packaging, freezing, seasoning or special processing after the split of point. These additional costs are directly related to specific products and are therefore classified as separable costs. For example, after the chicken has been separated into wings, breast meat, drumstick, the company may decide to marinate only the wings before selling them. The cost of seasoning, marinating, and packaging the wings apply only to that product. Therefore, these costs are separable costs because they can be directly assigned to a specific product. Now let us compare the two costs. Joint costs occur before the split of point, while separable costs occur after the split of point. Joint costs are shared among several products and cannot be directly traced to individual product. In contrast, separable costs belong to a specific product and can be directly assigned. Because joint costs cannot be directly traced, company must use cost allocation method to distribute them fairly among products. Separable costs do not acquire allocation because they are already belong to a particular product. This distinction is important because it affects managerial decision making. If a company incorrectly classifies joint costs and separable costs, the calculated product cost may be inaccurate. This can lead to poor pricing decision, incorrect profitability analysis, and ineffective management strategies. In conclusion, joint costs and separable costs are two important concepts in joint product costing. Joint costs are incurred before the split of point and are shared among multiple products, while separable costs are incurred after the split of point and can be directly assigned to a specific product. Understanding this distinction is essential because it enables company to allocate costs accurately, determine product costs correctly, and make better business decisions. Thank you.
Good day to our lecturer and fellow classmates. My name is Akilam Shabir Muhammad Faiz Meyarasu, and as part of our group's analysis of joint products, my presentation will focus on methods of allocating joint costs. And with an additional review of a article journal, Malaysian article journal, which is titled development of a new costing structure in product and service operation using time-driven activity-based cost method by Muhammad Zaini and Abu, published in 2022. Alright, let's begin by looking at the most basic approach to allocating joint costs, which is the physical measurement method. As you can see on the slide, this method distributes joint costs based on a tangible physical metrics such as weight or volume, measured exactly at the split off point. It is a pretty much straightforward method. I'll give you an example, which is if a specific product makes up 70% of a batch total weight, it simply absorbs the 70% of the joint cost also. Since it is a pretty much straightforward method and it is easy to apply this cost measure method, the core research of our presentation, the 2022 study by Muhammad Zaini and Abu on the Malaysian palm oil industry, heavily criticized this traditional method due to allocating costs by physical weight assumes that producing a ton of crude palm oil and a ton of palm kernels consumes the exact same amount of factory resources and machine time. Operationally, that is rarely true, as the article highlights. Relying on this physical assumption distorts the true cost of the products and leads to inaccurate profitability analysis of management. Alright, let's move to the next slide because physical measurement is often flawed. Management accountants frequently turn to market-based allocation methods. This is the second method. Alright. The first approach here is the sales value at a split-off method. Instead of looking at physical weight, this allocates joint costs based on relative total sales revenue of each product right at the moment they separate. The underlying logic is that products generating higher revenue have a greater capacity to absorb a heavier share of the production cost. Let's say if a joint product cost cannot be sold immediately at the split-off point and requires further processing, we use the second approach, which is the NRV method. To find our allocation base here, we take the final expected sales value of the product and subtract any separable costs incurred during the further processing. While these market-based methods are generally better than simply weighing the products, they carry a major limitation. They rely entirely on fluctuating external market prices to allocate internal costs, meaning they still fail to track the actual operational time and resources being consumed on the factory floor. Okay, let's move on to the final method, which is the time-driven activity-based costing method. This is where the chosen journal article provides the incredible value on this method. The researchers conducted a case study right here in Malaysia, focusing on a palm oil and plantation factory. Instead of relying on a traditional arbitrary allocation basis like just using total weight or basic volume, the authors developed and implemented a time-driven activity-based costing framework, which is known as TDABC. The mechanics of TDABC in a joint product environment are fascinating. The systems calculates the capacity cost rate of the shared resources, essentially determining how much it costs the factory per minute to operate. Then, based on time equations, it allocates those shared pre-split of joint costs to the respective joint products based on the exact amount of time the processing activities consume. This allows management to see precisely how much background operational cost is being swallowed up before the crude palm oil and palm kernels waste at the split-off point. What I find in this study, the researchers discovered that by moving away from traditional costing and adopting this advanced TDABC framework, which is the time-driven activity-based costing method, the company gained total visibility over its share processing costs. Crucially, the article highlights that traditional systems tend to overcost or undercost joint products because they ignore the actual consumption of operational resources. Um, by accurately tracing the time spent on joint processing, the TDABC model revealed the true cost of production. From a management accounting perspective, this is a game changer when you know the exact undistorted cost of your joint product at the split-off point. Your pricing strategies become sharper, your inventory valuations aligns perfectly with reality, and you can make highly informed decisions about whether to sell the products immediately at split-off or process them further for higher margins. To conclude, this article successfully demonstrates that managing joint products requires splitting at the cutoff point. It requires an understanding of the operational drivings behind those costs. While the study proves that TDABC provides superior accuracy for joint product costing in the Malaysian agriculture sector, it is also notes that implementing such as a system requires significant time, data implement, and commitment.
Good morning to our lecturer. My name is Muhammad Ilman Akif bin Ibrahim and my matrix number is 313120, and I will now representing the topic about the sell or process further decision based on the journal I get, which is blood component as joint product, a literature review of allocation cost methods published by Canadian Centre of Science and Education. I will now be presenting a crucial topic in strategic management accounting, which is the sell or process further decision. Fundamentally, this framework is utilized by management to determine whether a joint product should be sold immediately at the split-off point or undergo additional processing to increase its overall market value and utility. So, when conducting the financial analysis for this decision, there is one golden rule that we must strictly follow, which is we call it all joint costs incurred before the split-off point are considered as a sunk cost. This is because these costs have already been incurred. They are entirely irrelevant to our future cost of action and must be completely ignored. Instead, management must focus its attention strictly on incremental analysis. This means that further processing is only financially justified if the additional revenue generated from the refined product exceeds the separable processing cost required to enhance it. If the incremental revenue is higher than the incremental cost, then processing further will yield a higher net profit for the organization. However, beyond this financial calculation, several qualitative factors play a vital role in the decision-making process, especially when we look at the healthcare and blood banking industry. Unlike traditional manufacturing, the extreme perishability of blood components change the dynamics entirely. For instance, platelets expire in just 5 days. This highly perishable nature requires processing decision to be made with maximum speed and efficiency to prevent life-saving resource from going to waste. Furthermore, clinical demand for rare blood subtype and the necessity to comply with strict national health and safety regulation often completely override monetary profit margin. In this sector, ensuring that public health requirements are met is the absolutely priority, regardless of the financial cost involved. So now let us see this framework in action. So let us now move into the next part, which is example. To see this framework in action, let us look at a real-world example involving blood component processing, especially fresh frozen plasma, or we can call it in a short term, FFP. At the split-off point after centrifugation, this plasma can be distributed immediately in its base state for standard blood transfusion. However, it can also be processed further through a thawing and cold centrifugation process to extract what we call cryoprecipitate, which is a high-value clotting factors used to treat hemophilia patients. This further processing is highly justified because the combined clinical value and market demand for cryoprecipitate and the residual plasma significantly outweigh the base value of the original plasma, easily covering the additional laboratory and technician costs involved in the extraction. Then we can look at the application in the red blood cell refinement, or the short term is RBCR, specifically through leukoreduction. Standard pack red blood cells obtained at the split-off point can be processed further through specialized filter to remove the white blood cells, creating leukoridase red blood cell. This refinement is critical to meet specific medical needs, as it vastly reduces the risk of transfusion reaction in immunocompromised or hypersensitive patients. Although this requires additional investment in specialized leukocyte filter and also sterile solution, the decision to process further is heavily supported by higher medical reimbursement rates and critical clinic mandates that always prioritize patient safety over basic production costs. Ultimately, in this industry, selling processing further is not just about maximizing the bottom line, but about balancing financial viability with the ethical duty of saving life. So that's all from me.